And we are back. Where we left off last time was that I discovered that I had the wrong piston rings for this piston, and I did get the correct piston rings, so we can move on from basically where we would have been there. And the other thing about these piston rings is that they're the same configuration as the other ones. So the top ring it doesn't matter which side is up on that one, and but the second ring does matter to which side is up, and there's a top there. There's a mark there that says top on that ring. And it's got a chamfer on one side. So what I wanted to see last time, I wanted to put the ring, I wanted to put it into that groove there. So I want to make sure that that ring sits below, that there's no protrusion there. So the ring is sitting below the outside of the piston there. If it sat proud of that, then that would mean that that thickness there would be wider than the depth of that groove. And if it was like that, it would have interference between the piston, the ring, and the cylinder wall, and it would bind, and that would be a problem. And from what I can see, it sits down there like it's supposed to. Same thing on the second ring. For what I'm seeing there, it's sitting below that surface, so we've got enough clearance there. So it looks like these rings are good for this piston. The other thing we can check is, we could do that with the oil rings too. Yeah, and there's just tons of clearance there for the oil rings. And the other thing is, you can kind of check that with the rings on the piston and make sure that once they're installed, they're sitting below the surface when they're pushed up against there. So the next thing to do is, I want to get those rings fitted on to the piston, and we can do the last, check the last dimension that I want to find out. So they wanted you to install that with it upright like that. For some reason, I don't know what difference that would make, but that's the way they say to do it in the instructions, so that's the way I'll do it. I'm laying out the gaps on the oil rings like this, so the expander ring is going to be there, the oil ring there, and there. And then I'm going to do something similar with the compression rings. I'm going to put those here like this. Now, my opinion is, I've talked to a few people about this, or where the piston ring gaps should be. Most of the people I've talked to said, as long as you don't line them up and you get them a good distance away from one another, you're probably going to be fine. But this is the way I do it. You saw in the way I did that, I spiraled those oil rings into place. I think that's okay to do with these thin oil rings. But something I've seen in instructions for piston rings a few times is that they don't like you doing that with the compression rings. What they want you to do is install it. I put it loosely in the soft jaws there so I can do this easier. So we'll put on the second ring first. And this is the one that has a direction on it. So that's the top. That does not mean the top ring, that means the top of the second ring. And this one does have a chamfer, or actually it's kind of like more of a ledge on there, but anyway. And what they don't want you to do is to spiral that on there like the way, like I did with these oil rings. They want you to use a tool like this that expands the ring. It expands the ring like that rather than twisting it. Let me put that on there with the top mark facing top. And you do need to be a bit careful with these, because I saw somebody get a little bit too carried away with one of these, and if you expand them out too much, they are brittle and they will break. Okay, so there's the second ring in place, and we got our top ring, and the direction on that did not matter. Okay, not that it matters too much, I don't think, but we're going to get that gap over there, and a gap over there. Okay, so there's that. So let's move on to the next part. The last dimension I want to check on this assembly is I want to look at the clearance between the piston ring and the piston ring groove. I use a feeler gauge in there, and this is a 15 10,000ths feeler gauge here. It fits in there, but is a little bit tight. Not too bad. So I'm willing to call that about 15 10,000ths there. It fits about the same way in the second ring there. So about 15 10,000ths. We also want to measure that on the oil rings. A 3,000ths feeler gauge fits in there pretty well. But you know, the reason you kind of want to check that is like what the problem I had before, where I had the rings that were too thick. What if I had gotten a ring that was too thin? What if I had the opposite problem? So anyway, that's one reason to check it. So now I need to go through and do this on the other 5 pistons. So this particular 4.3 has individual rod journals. I was looking at this for a while and trying to decide whether the rod was directional in there. And I studied it for a while and it looks symmetrical to me until I looked at it from this angle. And you can kind of see here that the rod's kind of, the big end's kind of shifted over that way. So it's not symmetrical, and it does matter which way that rod goes into the engine. And I can try to show you real quick what that's about, and we'll see if we can see it. I can't easily measure it, but to me it kind of looks like the journal is not in the center of this. It looks like it's off to the side slightly, but I don't have a way to measure that, so I just visually looking at it, and I think that's why the rod is shifted to one side on the big end. Fortunately, I checked this over, and it looks like the machine shop put the rods on the piston the correct way, so that all I have to do is what I'll show you next. And so all I have to do now as I'm installing these is to keep an eye on that dot there, and that should point towards the front of the engine. I think I'm ready to install this. Just need to oil this up, oil up the cylinder wall, put some assembly lube on here, and make sure my piston ring gaps are where I want them. And again, they're going to be in this configuration here, the oil ring gaps here, compression ring gaps here. That's why I'm going to do that. And then the other thing is I have these to put on the ends of the rod bolts, and that's an important thing to do, because if you're not careful, if you don't do that, you can run your rod bolts right into your nicely polished rod journal and do some pretty significant damage to the crank. What I can talk about real quickly is a couple of different piston ring compressors that I've used here in my garage, and probably most of the home engine builders are very familiar with this. Now, that I have used it many times with success, and but what I will say about it is that it can be a real pain to use this, but it'll fit a very large range of piston diameters. So that's kind of the upside of this. But what I picked up a while ago was one of these. I have a couple of them, but this one fits that size bore, and we're a 4030, so this is a good size for that. And it just has a hose clamp that goes around there, and then you snug it down. I'm not going to tighten that up too much, maybe not even tight at all. So just enough to touch the sides of the piston a little bit, and then allow the rings to go through. And this, I like the way this works quite a lot better. So, and they aren't too much money, really. In my opinion, worthwhile. Let me get myself set up. Let me get everything oiled down and ready to go so that I can start putting this piston into the engine. Just using regular motor oil on that. Okay, everything's all pretty good. I'm just gonna go around just one of these rings here. Sometimes easier to this well. That kind of gets a little messy. Not this messy. Okay, so I can see how that's going to go there. Spin around and around. Make sure the ring grooves get close to them. So, that. So I've got the rod journal rotated down to the bottom of the engine there, and we'll be installing that with the mark facing forward. The bottom of the rod there to make sure that we are not going to run into the rod journal. And then put the cap on. And making sure that that goes in there nice and smooth, so that making sure I did put that back on the correct way. And the numbers seem to be matching up there, so I think we're okay there. And it all lines up pretty good. So it looks like that's the right way. And then I'm just going to snug those down by hand for the time being. And then as I go along, I'll just kind of turn these and make sure that things seem to be going in the right way and that nothing binds up as I move along. Let me just load those other 5 in, and after that we'll go through and we'll torque those all at the same time. Okay, so we got all the connecting rods and pistons installed there. The next thing I've got is a little bit of it's a little uncertain what to do here. And I got curious about what the deal was with these. Over there on my bench, I've got the manual for this. I looked at the torque spec on that, and it says tighten these to 20 foot-pounds and then turn it another 70 degrees. So what you need in order to do that is a tool like this. It's got a magnetic base on the other end, and you kind of do this type of thing. And then you torque it to 20, and then it's got that on there. It's got some degree increments there. You torque it to 20, and then you go another 70 degrees. That's the tool you would need to do that with. But from my experience, when you see like preload torque specification, like the 20 foot-pounds, and then you see an angle specification to go along with it, generally speaking, this may not be true every time, but it's just kind of my feeling about it, but that would indicate that maybe that bolt's a torque to yield bolt. If it's a torque to yield bolt, that means it's a single time use fastener. It's technically a single use fastener, so what that would mean is that it's a stretch bolt. And the idea is that torque it to 20, and then you get your 70 degrees in there, and it would be that 70 degrees of twisting that would probably stretch the bolt to its yield point. To me, what would happen is that if you did that, it would stretch it a little bit permanently. And then what would happen is if you took the cap off, like we did when we disassembled it, and then put it back together and torqued it to 20 and then turned it 70 degrees, well, you'd stretch the bolt even further. So what I did, well, first I torqued it to 20, and then I put this tool on there. Why don't we look at that? So let's do a little bit of an experiment here. So we'll do like the book says, at least for that part of it. We'll go to 20 foot-pounds on that. Okay, so we got 20 foot-pounds on that fastener there. Set this up on there. And then maybe we'll just go up to we'll just go to 30 right now and see what this angle does. This thing is a little bit tricky to use because it seems like if this isn't lined up perfectly, it catches on the base here and makes it want to twist, so I got to try to hold it myself. So we're just going up to 30 right now. Okay, that one went pretty well. Looks like maybe 18, 19 degrees it turned when I went from 20 foot-pounds to 30 foot-pounds. So let's see how many degrees it turns to go to 40 foot-pounds. And we're at maybe like 36. Here's what I think is going to happen if I turn that all the way over to there. I think I'm going to break the bolt. That's what I think is going to happen. And let's just see what 45 foot-pounds is. Okay, so let's do it again, and this time we're going to go to 45 foot-pounds. So that was kind of moving all over the place there. Maybe about 50 degrees there it turned. It was kind of moving around, but we can kind of see how things are going. So to me, I realize that kind of moved around there, but I think we kind of get the idea. I think 45 is about as far as I really want to go with that. Going more than 45 on this type of a bolt to me seems like asking for trouble. So that's just what I think. So my opinion is 45 is about as far as I think I should go with that. Because I think if I go the full 70 degrees there, I'm probably going to be somewhere between 50 and 55 foot-pounds, which to me, for this size fastener, seems like a lot. Or I wasn't exactly sure about this, so what I did is I got on the phone and I talked to the machine shop that took a look at these rods and reconditioned that one on number 6. What he did when he did this stuff was he torqued these to 45. I think that's probably what I'm going to be doing. I'm probably going to put these at somewhere between 40 and 45. I'm not going to recommend that you use the torque spec that I'm going to use, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to 45 on this. So let me go through, torque these up. We'll start at 20 and then we'll go up to 45. I have all the bolts oiled with regular motor oil. I'm not using that special thread lubricant. It's just motor oil on there. So let me go through and do that. So I got them all tightened in there at 45. They torqued down pretty nice. Alright, that's where I'm going to go with that. I'm moving on. So one thing I probably ought to check, now that it's all bolted in there and fastened down, is the clearance between the side of the rod and the crankshaft. And that one's about 9 thousandths. So let me go through and check them all. They're probably going to be okay, but I probably ought to check them anyway. So I think the next thing I'm going to do is probably going to reinstall this rear seal housing in here. Got a new seal in there, and it looks like the seal came with like a tool to help you install it. We'll see how it goes there. The gasket kit I got has a new gasket, and something I've kind of gotten in the habit of doing. I don't really know if it's necessary or not. I usually spray these kind of felt type of gaskets with a little bit of gasket sealer. Whether it's necessary or not, I don't know, but it's something, it's a little precaution that I take to try to avoid annoying leaks. Let me oil up the crank seal surface, and let's see if we can get that installed. Alright. Gonna oil that surface up there a little bit so we're not installing the seal dry. Unfortunately, there's an alignment pin there and a stud there, which should make this a lot easier in terms of keeping the gasket aligned while I install this. Okay, so I got that done. I really want to put the pan on as soon as I can, but I can't put that on yet. I think I need to get the timing cover on first. And in order to do that, I got to get the camshaft and the balance shaft in too. So got to do those first before I can get the pan on it. But okay, so got that done. Let's move on. Okay, so I kind of intended to get a little bit further with this week in this video, but you know, basically where we are right now is we have the short block assembled, and I was looking at, while I'm editing this, I'm kind of seeing that, you know, it looks like we're getting close to about 20 minutes for this video, and that's kind of getting up there. So I think I'm going to wrap this video up. Getting the short block done is a bit of a milepost there, so good time to stop, I think. Next time we'll be doing the valve train, get the cylinder heads on, the oil pan, all that stuff. And hopefully we can get this this project done here. So at any rate, I guess that's about all I got for you this week, and I'll see you next time.